Again, and thank you for the introduction, Peggy. We are excited to be here. My name's Maija. I am the Development Director over at Family Support Center, and Amanda King is our amazing Pear Blossom Place Program Manager, and she's been there longer than I have, so you'll get to hear from her in a little bit. I am just going to go ahead and get started with our presentation, and so I'm going to share my screen. So we are from Family Support Center of South Sound, and our mission is a pretty large one. It's working together to strengthen all families and survivors in our community. Family Support Center envisions a community where all families and survivors are safe, that they're valued, they feel supported, they can be healthy, and then they can feel hopeful. And hope is very important for a lot of the stuff that we do at Family Support Center. Most folks don't realize that we've actually been around in our community since 1992. It was started as this small little one-stop shop for families in need. It was downtown. It wasn't even open every day of the week. And it was really based on the idea that families who are in crisis, who are really struggling, should be able to go to one place to get the help that they need instead of having to go here and there and just adding stress to an already stressful situation. So that's kind of the core of what we do still at Family Support Center. And we currently offer 5 programs. We offer comprehensive, individualized support services for families and survivors. And we'll talk about what that really means as we go through the presentation. Now, who we serve about 4,000 parents, children, and survivors annually. And just so you know, when I'm talking about survivors, that is survivors of domestic violence, family violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, and stalking. So that's a pretty broad term. We help any family with any kind of a need in our community. If they're facing eviction, if they need some extra diapers that month, we try to be there to support them. And as you can see there, that's that definition of survivors. So I'm not going to talk much about the FJC, that Family Justice Center program today, but I will touch on that a little bit. And that's the program that serves those survivors. Most of today will be focused on our Homeless Family Services program. And that serves about 1,000 families a year. And we say an average family size is like 3.2, really, if you look kind of at that aggregate. And how it works in our community, if you are a person experiencing homelessness, whether you're a single individual, a family, or a youth, you go into the coordinated entry system, and that manages all of the homeless population in our community so that we can be more streamlined, we can be more efficient. And Family Support Center, we serve as that entry point for all families. So we're the designated spot for families to go to. If another community partner is working with a family experiencing homelessness, they send them our way to get into that coordinated entry system, that homeless response system. And we also serve as that entry point for survivors of domestic violence in Thurston County. And I will also say that Family Support Center is actually the lead agency for the entire CE system. So that allows us to really be flexible and adaptive with the programs that we have. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm happy to report that just about 90% of families that go through our Homeless Family Services program, and to get into this program, you have to be literally homeless. That means you're unsheltered, you're living in a car, in a tent, that you didn't have a bed to sleep in the night before. So that is how you get enrolled into the Homeless Family Services program, or are eligible for it, excuse me. Now, when you exit that program into a permanent housing solution, we call it, about 90% of the folks that do exit into that housing stay housed for at least 6 months. And we'll talk about how they stay housed and some of the supports that we're able to offer to keep them in that housing a little bit later. Something to note with this Homeless Family Services program, we use something called a housing first model, and that's really important in that fight against homelessness and getting people back on track and back into housing. And it's this idea that one of the first things that we try and do is get somebody into housing. At that point, they can start to work on some of those other barriers and issues that got them, that led to them becoming homeless in the first place or experiencing homelessness. And so that's really a core thing of what we do. We also believe that services should be client driven. There's no formula exactly for how we help each client. We want to know what is going well for the client, what that client really needs, what they think that they need. We want to know what strengths that family has, what support system do they already have in place, what resources do they have that they're maybe not thinking of, and we want to help them to build those and to utilize those. And something that we do that I really appreciate is this idea of wraparound services, where we will help not just with housing, but also with employment. If there's a treatment program that needs to be attended, we will help support that. We believe in helping the whole family to be successful and getting them into housing first and addressing some of those other things. And at this point, I will kindly turn it over to Amanda to talk specifically about Pear Blossom Place. And that's probably one of the best tools in the toolkit for that homeless family services program. They work very much in tandem. So Amanda, I will go ahead and mute myself and turn it over to you, and just let me know when you want me to move to the next slide.
Thank you so much, Maija. Hello, everybody. Yes, and so as Maija mentioned, Pear Blossom Place is one of our biggest tools that we do have, because it does allow us to provide shelter for kiddos and their parents that are literally homeless. And we're able to do it in a way that reflects a lot of the things that Maija talked about in our homeless program, being client driven. We believe that families make the best choices, know how to make the best choices for them. And so we support that. Pear Blossom Place is a 36-bed shelter. And so that means that we can, I'm kind of going out of order, I see, I apologize, but 36-bed shelters. So for children and their families, we have 6 rooms, and then a large common room. Each of those rooms comes with a bathroom and an ensuite kitchenette. In an average non-COVID year, we do 16,000 bed nights. And what that means is that that's the number of people that we had in beds during the whole year, which is amazing. We are the largest 24-hour emergency homeless shelter in the South Sound region. There are some, smaller ones, but they're mostly domestic violence focused. And so ours is not, and we have also, I'm sorry, I lost my track. We have 36 year-round beds that we offer here at Pear Blossom. We have an open-ended stay for families. And what that means is that a lot of shelters limit their time that families can be in shelter by about 90 days. And sometimes they can extend it a little bit, but here we encourage families to look for that permanent supportive housing situation that's going to be better for them after moving on from Pear Blossom. For a typical family, it's for about a 90-day, it is about a 3 to 5 month stay. Some families will stay a little bit longer, but that is based on their needs and what barriers they have to finding housing. We also really focus on fitting families with the landlords that are family minded as well. And so we're not putting them in situations where it doesn't work out for longer. And most recently, we got, a part of Pear Blossom Place also is our 7 permanent housing units with supportive services. And what that means is that the tenants here at Pear Blossom, they are able to access all of the services that Family Support Center offers, all of the case management. They have, they're able to stay here, and after a year, they can get a housing choice voucher through the Housing Authority, which really allows for them to find different forms of housing. So whether that's an apartment that offers more amenities than we do here at Pear Blossom, but really helps families kind of elevate their housing and staying successful in their housing. And then over the last year, we were able to install solar panels on our ceiling from with a grant through PSE, and that's helping us with some of our overhead on our power bill. And we're really excited to partner with them. We really focus on being as green as possible as we can here at Pear Blossom. COVID definitely put a little bit of a hinge in that, with needing to really step up and make sure that we were sanitizing a little more than with a little harsher chemicals, but we made it through, and we're coming on the other end of that. And next slide, Maija. And I apologize for my rambling. I am a little nervous. It has been a while since we've done these presentations, so please. And like I said, we have an open-ended stay here for families at Pear Blossom. And that means that, ostensibly someone could stay the life of shelter. We wouldn't want that for families, and we don't in any way encourage that, but that is how it operates. Low barrier. And what we mean by low barrier is that we don't have a lot of rules and things that we ask our families to follow. We have expectations versus rules. And so if, for example, if an adult is struggling with substance use, we don't require them to be sober here, but we ask that they do not use on site. And we have staff who, keep an eye on that and make sure that kiddos are safe. But we wouldn't remove them from shelter just for that. We look at the bigger picture, and so have lower barriers than most other shelters in that way. We also accept families how they present themselves. So if a family came to shelter and they're like, well, my mom is a part of my family, we would allow mom to come into shelter. And so sometimes we have grandmas in shelter with our families. Our selection process is through the coordinated entry system that Maija mentioned. And during that time, we give families a list of questions, which is called a vulnerability index. And that looks at what are the things that make families more vulnerable. Do they have active CPS or DCYF involvement, Child Protective Services, or are they involved with the court systems? Do they have those kind of barriers that just make it a little harder and more vulnerable to finding housing that works for them, and they're not in a situation of being taken advantage of? That vulnerability score goes onto a list, and that becomes the list that we use for demand of shelter, and the other resources that we have within our toolbox here at Pear Blossom or within Family Support Center. Shelter's one piece of that. We have some other housing pieces that go with that, and we all pull from this list, and we go to the highly vulnerable on that list and work our way down from there. We offer case management for housing, and any other needs that can arise. Sometimes families need to access, like Maija said, car repairs. I'm sure everyone has heard that most families are $500 away from an inconvenience and possibly losing housing for a $500 car bill. So we try to help with those, and we have case managers to help with that. Here at shelter specifically, we do have a grant for the treatment sales tax, and that allows for us to have a case manager who is doing intensive case management with our families here at the Pear Blossom shelter, our extended shelter, and then also the tenants here at Pear Blossom. And he is focused on helping them navigate mental health supports, substance use disorder, and things of that nature. And it's a really great program, and it allows for us to help families with making those engagements and maintaining them with things such as gas cards or For one instance, we had a mom that was trying to get to treatments, but her stroller broke. And so through those funds, we were able to provide her with a new stroller, and that was detrimental to her remaining on her program. And then when people exit Pear Blossom Place, we have it's a little bittersweet. You know, we get attached to our families when they're here, but we're so excited for them to move on. And when they do that, it's often with through a program within our agency or through the housing authority, and they're still connected to for the treatment sales tax, the intensive case manager for up to 60 days after they leave. And then they still have housing case management with their homeless housing case manager. And we stay in contact with them to make sure that when that, $500 car bill comes up and they are struggling, that we're there to help them and support them in their housing. Next slide. All right. And then I'm going to turn this over to Maija. She is way better at bragging about the amazing things that we do here at Shelter. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, and I'm good at bragging about us, but sometimes the tech gets me wrong. So sorry for fast forwarding really quickly. And I do want to take a moment or two to really talk about what Pear Blossom Place and the staff and the leadership there, and that's you, Amanda, were able to accomplish during COVID. We pride ourselves on being a solutions-oriented agency. We want to know how we can make things happen. So I like to say that we have creative solutions and a committed staff. Once COVID hit and that mandate came out that people couldn't be in what we call that congregate shelter, and I'm just going to back up for 1 second. So the 36 beds that Family Support Center has year-round are available year-round. During the cold weather season, which is November 1st through April 30th in a normal year, the common space at Pear Blossom Place becomes kind of a congregate shelter. There are families that are sleeping on the floor as a life-saving measure to get them out of the elements. So that gets us up to 70 people in a given night for 6 months a year at Family Support or at the Pear Blossom Place shelter. So I want you to keep in mind that it's March when COVID hits. We are pretty much at full capacity, almost at like the 70 folks at shelter. And then we're told, you can't have that many people because it's not safe anymore. And our amazing leadership decided, we're not making families go out on the street right now during this pandemic. And so they got really creative. They were able to keep a few families in that common space at Pear Blossom Place, and they did that by PVC pipe and tarps and just partitions that worked out really well. And the biggest thing that we were able to do, was to provide hotel rooms. And we just started doing this. We didn't know what was going to happen with the funding source. We didn't know how long it was going to take. It was just like, okay, we need folks to be safe and to have that stay home, stay healthy spot. And so we started offering hotel rooms. And at first, I think that we were up to 13 hotel rooms in addition to the 36 beds that we had at shelter and a few more in that common space. So we got up to at least 13 hotel rooms for families by Memorial Day weekend. And then the Quality Inn fire hit. And that's actually where we had all of our families in that non-congregate shelter option, that hotel option. They were staying at Quality Inn. So now these families were facing total loss in some of them, for the things that were at the hotel. And once again, our amazing staff stepped up, and I'm not going to say before the sun rose, but before noon the next day, all of those families were in other hotels. We're safe. We're starting to get supplies because of the amazing outpouring of the community. And so that was just there, on that May 31st, that Memorial Day weekend. At some points during the heart of the pandemic, we were offering up to 30 hotel rooms a night. That is a feat in management like nobody's seen at Family Support Center. That is 2 different hotels, different staff going to make sure that not only are those families safe and healthy, but that have access to food, that their children are occupied by working with the Hands-On Children's Museum to create like little craft and maker kits. You know, like the staff really went above and beyond to make sure that families were safe and not, I mean, it's hard to be in a hotel room for days at a time. So they really worked to make sure that they were at least as comfortable and as occupied as could be. You know, that emergency level capacity, that cold weather capacity where we add all those extra people, or in this case, where we're adding those extra hotel rooms, we started that November 1st, 2019. When cold weather started, we started offering that expanded capacity. Because of the way things are working out, we'll continue to offer that emergency level capacity all the way through April 30th of next year, I believe, because funding will go through to help a few families through the summer. And then again, that cold weather season will kick in. So it's kind of amazing to think about a program running at sometimes 150% capacity for weeks at a time and still being able to do a great job. You know, in a normal year, we offer about 16,000 bed nights. In 2020, we offered 28,100 or 819 bed nights. That's a lot. And we did it without volunteers who have always been a backbone of Pear Blossom Place. Once COVID hit, we were no longer able to rely on that amazing cadre of volunteers. In fact, we still can't even have them at shelter unless we're doing outside projects. And so we had to shift to a 24/7 staffing model, which has actually been really successful for families at shelter. And I don't think we'll go back because it has proven to be so helpful for all of the families. So I know that was more than a minute, but I'm constantly amazed by what we're able to do at Family Support Center. And during the COVID pandemic, I just felt like our team like really pulled together and really shined and was able to offer extra support. We offered extra support as opposed to pulling back. And I just love to be able to talk about that and the team. And now Amanda's going to talk a little bit about the history and future of our shelter program.
Thank you, Maija. Wow, we did a lot. I always forget. But yeah, so the shelter, how it started was actually more like the kind of night by night model. It originally was in the basement of, well, it started in church basements. Going every night, they would have to find a different church, and then families would call. And this was in the early 2000s. Families would call and find out which church they could go to, and they would be able to receive shelter for the night. And then they were able to make it, work it out with First, or is it? I'm forgetting the name of the church, but it's one of the churches downtown where Interfaith Works is. And they were there for a few years, and every night from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., families could come there and get shelter, but they had to be out during the day. And so it was always a dream of Family Support Center to open a 24-hour shelter. And in 2014, they were able to do that with grants and the help of the city of Olympia selling us a building for $1, and came Pear Blossom Place, 24-hour shelter. And it's been amazing, and it just keeps growing. A part of that growth that we have is that we, during COVID, opened a extended shelter at our new campus location up on the west side. And that's 10 additional beds in a shelter. And so, and it's a 24-hour shelter. That shelter is not staffed, and that is the pictures that are on the screen there. It was kind of the evolution of us turning this semi-medical kind of floor into a 10-bed shelter for families. We added an additional bathroom, a kitchen area, washers and dryers, as you see there. And like I said, it is unstaffed. And we opened it on April 1st of 2021. There are 4 individual rooms and then a communal space. They have 1 dedicated case manager that checks in with them every day and works on their goals and planning for their housing future. And we were able to get that through a grant with the Washington Department of Commerce. It was pretty early on in COVID when they were just like, we've got all this money, let's create new shelter beds. And we were like, we can help with that. And so we're really excited to have that as an additional piece of our shelter. We do have cameras there since it's unstaffed, and so we can watch. And it's extended and slightly higher barrier than what Pear Blossom is, since there isn't that staffing piece. But so far, since April, when we were able to move families in, it has been going amazing, and we couldn't be more excited about that. And I'm not sure if Maija, do you have a slide for the housing project?
I do not have a slide, but
I was going to throw that in there real quick.
I know. I
okay.
do have an image that I thought I'd pull up maybe toward the end, and we can do a little plug so I don't have to bounce between programs. But we do have a cool housing project that we'll touch on here in a couple moments.
Okay. And
next
slide. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Nope, you're good. And it is exciting news, the new development, but we'll get to that. One of the questions that folks submitted beforehand is like, how do you help people who are at shelter move on to that next phase, which is that permanent housing solution? And we do that in a number of ways. We have the case managers, the dedicated staff at shelter, the TST, or the treatment sales tax case manager. But we also, one of the things that I love about our agency is how well all of our teams and programs cohesively work together. And so the other programs that we have on site are that Family Justice Center. It's the one for survivors. We serve about 450 survivors annually. It's confidential, individualized advocacy, and it's 100% survivor driven, just like our homeless family cases are 100% client driven. Same thing for survivors who are getting our services. And then the parent and child education program, and this one really ties in really well with our Pear Blossom Place program. And this, the parent ed program, as we call it, focuses on like the 5 protective factors, which are kind of a best practice. And most of the folks in Thurston County who deal with children focus on those protective factors. And the goal of that is really to create more resilient kiddos. The whole goal is to increase resilience in kiddos and families. Through that parent and child ed program, families are able to access supplies and resources, including breastfeeding supplies, diapers, formula, carriers, all of the stuff. Through that program, we also have a monthly workshop, which is available now online. And that is a power parenting workshop. And that's been going on for a few years and is really quite successful. And then on Thursdays through that program, we have a virtual breastfeeding support group. Prior to COVID, at shelter on Wednesdays, there was a baby group that met and was led by our parent and child educator. Through COVID, there was more one-on-one support being offered to families at shelter, although our parent and child educator is on site at shelter at least 1 day a week, if not 2. But that was also that one-on-one support was being offered to any parent or any family that was currently in our services and programs that had been in the past, and actually we were able to get funding to offer that to the entire community at large. And we're excited that there's a new woman of color parenting support group that we are able to offer. And it matters. The other programs that we have, they all matter. They all work together. So if a family is at Pear Blossom Place, but it comes out that there's been domestic violence issues previously, or even that happened while a family is at shelter, which is unfortunate, but does happen sometimes, they're able to work with a DV advocate, or their case manager is able to bring in that domestic violence advocate and have a specialized person to help with those issues. Like I said, the parent and child educator is on site at Pear Blossom Place, so they can just kind of hang out and get to know the families and do informal, quick, child development check-in with a parent, or just really work with parents on any issues that they're struggling with in a kind of more informal manner. I really think that that's why we have a good success rate, is because it's that holistic approach to helping families, and that's any family that we serve. I think another key to success, and you heard me brag about Pear Blossom Place staff and Family Support Center staff a moment ago, but it is the Family Support Center team. We meet 3 times a week to regularly talk about what's going on across programs and how clients are doing, and if we need help from somebody else. Staff often, hey, can you help me out with this? Like, it's just a very easy, good network of folks that are all committed to the same mission and just work to make it happen. We're led by really flexible and responsive leadership. You know, I think the COVID response really highlights that of, okay, what can we do? What do we need to do? Do we need more shelter? Okay, let's see if we can create a shelter. Is our community telling us that there's not enough support for families of color? Okay, let's see if we can get a grant and have a parent support group for families of color. We try and really listen and understand what's going on in our community to be able to meet emerging needs. And a huge component, I would say maybe the largest component of our success, is collaboration, both within our agency, but also with the community at large. I do our grant writing. Grant writing questions are often, your response is limited by the number of characters often, and that can get really tricky. It's usually a small amount, like a paragraph or 2 sometimes. And when they get to the question of collaboration, it's so hard for me because there are so many groups and community groups and other organizations that we collaborate with on a daily basis. Some of those key partnerships are like Community Youth Services, also the Community Action Council of Thurston, Lewis, and Mason County, and those are our counterparts that help other homeless populations like singles or kiddos. We work a lot with Child Care Action Council, Nurse Family Partnership, just pretty much if there's any service that we think can help our families in our community, we don't want to repeat, the wheel because somebody's already doing it well. So we want to rope them in and see how we can work together to serve families in our community. And that is just, it works. It has proven to work really well for us. And then, of course, just the amazing community support, the individuals, the local businesses. Last year, you can see here on this slide that in a normal year, I mentioned earlier, we serve about 4,000 kiddos, survivors in a year. We served more in 2020. We served 4,336 folks. During the pandemic, we were only able to do that because of community members bringing in diapers. I don't know how many folks sewed masks for us and for all of the families at shelter. It really is the community that steps up and allows us to be able to do what we do. And so ways that the community can help, hosting a drive or contributing items. I know for a fact that there's folks down at Panorama that are already doing that and bring things regularly. And that's really helpful. You can follow us on social media, Facebook, check us out on Facebook. We have all sorts of fun things going on. You can help spread the word. You can always organize a volunteer work party. Most of those are focused outside, but there's all sorts of fun kits that we have, how-to guides, how to create a kit for a family who is moving out of shelter and moving into a home of their own, but they don't have some dishes or other basic supplies that you need when you move into a new home. Excuse me, like cleaning supplies and such. So there's all sorts of different ways you can do a work party. We are having monthly volunteer events at Pear Blossom Place, which are focused outside. And those are the first Saturday of each month. Depending on the project, it's 1 hour to 2 hours. Last month, we put more bark on the playground and kind of spruced up the playground there at Pear Blossom Place. Not quite sure what we're doing this next month. Got a couple of ideas there. And then perhaps one of the most impactful and easiest things that folks can do is educate other community members about homelessness. There's a lot of misconceptions about homelessness in our community. There's a lot of reasons that people become homeless or experience homelessness. And it's just important to educate community members that families who are experiencing homelessness, you know, they need help. They need us to be able to be there and be supportive of them and help them overcome the barriers. And, you know, we are low barrier shelter. We don't judge. We just want to help people create a better future for themselves. And that's the goal. And so, you know, you are welcome to contact me, and I'm sure that my email address will be included in any emails that go out after this. If you want to just learn more about ways that you can help, you can always just go check out our website as well at fscss.org. And I would normally leave it on this adorable picture because this is one of the cutest pictures, one of my favorites. I use it all the time because you can't really help it. But I'm actually going to exit out of this if I can and reshare my screen and show you a picture. It's not a very sexy picture. Oh, hold on. Let me see if I can do this differently. Okay. Not the, you know, best picture, I gotta admit, it's not my skill set. But this picture made me so excited. This is just over 4 acres of land that is directly across the street from our complex, the Family Support Center campus on Olympia's west side. At the same time that we purchased that, we purchased this available land with the goal of building affordable housing for families and survivors in our community. Perhaps I would personally say the largest barrier to people accessing housing, families in particular, accessing housing in our community is the cost. It's not cheap to live in Olympia. It's just not. And it's not cheap to experience homelessness, actually. So in that, we do a lot of dreaming sessions, and we're like, okay, how can we fix that problem? Well, we could just build housing. That's a Herculean effort, I will say. But Family Support Center is doing it. We are this little machine here is the water test. Something about the water test. It was like the first piece that we needed to do in this process of getting it going after we've been talking to the city and securing funding. Like, this is the first actionable step on the property for us. And so this picture is probably one of my favorites. And what we're doing is we're building the number changes. The most recent and consistent numbers, we're trying to build 120 apartments, essentially. We're going to do it in 2 phases. We are going to hopefully, fingers crossed, break ground on the first phase, December, January. And that first phase will be 62 housing units. And so there'll be 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments that are affordable, and that families who are getting government assistance will be able to live in. And there's all sorts of fun features that we're adding and fun things that we're doing with the property. But the heart of it is that we are building housing for our community because that is what the need is. And so I will leave it there, and actually I'll stop sharing my screen and open it up to questions. Or Amanda, did I miss anything? Is there something you want to add before we open it up to questions?
No, I think you did amazing. Just that apartment, the new apartments is just like the continued evolution of Pear Blossom Place, because we started with 7 supportive housing units, and now we're trying to have, you know, over 100 for the future. And it just means great things for the families in our community, well, our community as a whole, because like Maija said, we'll have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. So that also will serve our single population that we, you know, don't serve here at Pear Blossom. There are, you know, they have their shelter program here in the community, but also just to offer more affordable, supportive housing. And it's so exciting. Yeah.
I must say, I warned both Peggy and Megan before we started that sometimes when I get talking about the awesomeness of my agency, I get talking. So I realize we're already at 11:13, but we are happy to answer questions.
One of the things that I put in our little Panorama newsletter as kind of a teaser, but it really is kind of fascinating. Why on your list of needs or wants does tents appear?
That's a great question. I will give it a quick answer, but I feel like Amanda will probably be able to. Actually, I'm just going to turn it over to you, Amanda. I feel like you can answer that one.
Sure. And thank you for bringing that up, Peggy. That I do feel like that was something we didn't really touch on. What do we do with the families we can't shelter? And so we try to get creative. And during the warmer months, we're often able to provide them with a Discover Pass, and they can go camping for up to 7 days in the state forest with that pass. Or families will find places to tent camp. Sometimes families are tent camping in other family members' backyards. And as Maija had mentioned, we do have our outreach program, and they are going to the encampments and things like that. And so we are working with that single population. And while they're out there, they're looking for the families that are in those camps as well, and helping steer them towards, getting the resources that we have for families and stuff. So, and that is why we ask for tents, because we often have to get very creative with what to do with those families we can't get into our shelters. So thank you for asking.
Just a reminder, if you have a question, go ahead and put it into the chat box and we'll read those out loud. Or if you're not sure how to write a chat, you can just wave us down and we'll make sure to call on you. You can ask your question live.
I just think it's pretty impressive what you're doing. It's very, very needed and good for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel very lucky to work where I work and to do what I do. And I feel like most of us feel the same way. So
the passion comes through.
Here's a question from Marcia in the chat. When you're able to have volunteers again, what kind of things do you have volunteers do?
That is a very great question. And with lots of things post-COVID, that's going to look probably a little different for us. Since kids under 12 haven't been able to get vaccinated yet, we haven't really gotten close to, making that decision of letting volunteers back in. And in the past, we had them, they covered a lot of the desk time here. And so with 24/7 staff, that isn't as high of a need anymore, but we definitely will be looking at the different ways that we will be able to integrate volunteers back into everything that we do here at Pear Blossom. And maybe instead of it'll be like, just as instead of watching the desk, maybe it's like coming in and sharing something with the children, like setting an activity or, a hobby or something, maybe, but just different ways. And we have, since COVID, had a resource center 3 days a week at our main campus. And at that resource center, families and the community as a whole has been able to access things like mask and cleaning products, wipes and things when we have had those, diapers, food, clothing, and those things. And that wasn't something that we really had pre-COVID. And so we've started slowly utilizing volunteers for that donation center. It'll be a slow process. And it'll be different. More to come. Sorry, that was really long.
Well, and I'm just going to add on to that a little bit. That resource station, we are in need of volunteers for that, and that's just a few-hour commitment. And you can contact me if that's something that's interesting to you, or something that you would enjoy doing. And before COVID, there were some groups that came in and they were offering maybe homework help, or offering to lead a craft class, or during the holidays, we get a lot of folks who come in and do like a fun activity for families. During COVID, and I think that we'll continue it after COVID, we've been having people do kits Like if we can't have people come in and teach a craft class, maybe they can put all of the materials together with a little instruction sheets and give that to the families, or, just trying to get creative on how to still have that volunteer interaction. But yeah, we are still figuring it out, and it will continue to evolve, I'm sure.
What are the biggest needs right now for things to be donated?
Diapers, 100%, all the time. Larger sizes, diapers and wipes, I would say, are a big need. And that's just at the resource station. Amanda, is there something that you're having a large need for right now at shelter?
The continuous need here at shelter seems to be like pots, pans, forks, spoons, diapers as well, diapers and wipes as well for the kiddos, but and then twin size bedding. All of the beds in shelter are twin size, and so that's, yeah.
I think our outreach team would also add water right now is a big thing to be able to take out for outreach and for encampments. So water and snacks. Everybody always likes food.
When I talked to people earlier, it surprised me to find out that things like sheets, the twin size sheets, towels, things like that did not need to be new. They can be used. And if things are used, Amanda told me that I said gently used, and she said, well, yes, that's nice. But if they're not, we try and be very, very green, and we use things that aren't usable as towels or beds as cleaning rags. So keep that in mind too.
And we have a question from Evie. Have you been able to help families get vaccinations?
Yes, the families that that are interested, yes. We've connected them with the clinics and the events that they've been having. The health department has been having. They're with families because of the kiddos not being able to get vaccinated. We're not seeing a big turnout for that, and so I don't know if it's like. For the parents, it's like not worth it if the kids aren't getting it, or they're just how kind of parents put themselves lower on the chain of command for how, what's getting taken care of in the household. So once it is open up to all kids, then we'll be hosting events. We'll work with the health department to have an event here at Pear Blossom or at our main campus so that families can come with their kids and everybody get vaccinated all at the same time.
And our outreach staff have been working at a number of the vaccination clinics that have been going around town. And so they're able to connect with families or other folks there as well. And so, yes, as much as possible.
Okay, it looks like that may be all the questions that we have today. Peggy, you want to close us out?
I would do that. I want to thank everybody who attended, and particularly Maija and Amanda for being here with us. If you do think of other things as you think about this presentation, I'm happy to get them to Amanda or Maija. So you all have my email, I think, and I would be happy to do that. So again, thank you for your time. Enjoy the weekend.
I will just add, I will leave this slide presentation available if it wants to be shared via email. And I believe our contact information is also on there if you'd like to reach out. So
great. Thank you.
And thank you for the opportunity to talk about the great work that we do.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.